all is expensive in Indonesia. I don't know, maybe it's because of the... Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be about the pros and cons of living in Indonesia as an expat. I'm speaking from my experience living in Jakarta, Indonesia. And in the previous video, I made a video about being Black, African to be specific, in Indonesia. If you haven't seen that video, I will link it somewhere here or in the description box. And that being said, if you're not subscribed to this channel, subscribe, click the button below so that you'll be notified every time I post a video. I almost said a picture. Every time I post a video. And if you're not following me on Instagram, follow me. It's at Wale Chronicles. And now let's get into the video. So of course, naturally, I'm going to talk about the pros first before I talk about the cons. So the first pro I'm going to talk about, everybody already knows, is the food. The food in Indonesia is absolutely amazing. Like, there's so much flavor, tastiness. I think this is a common thing in Southeast Asian cuisine. Like, the food is really, 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 really good. You would find, especially if you live in somewhere like Jakarta, for instance, you would find cuisines from different parts of the world: Japanese, Indian, Turkish. Oh, the Turkish restaurant in Jakarta is so good. Oh my god. I mean, like, you would not have any problem with food. You would, if you're a foodie, you would absolutely have a really, really good time because there are different options. If you like street food, the street food is really, really good and really, really cheap and affordable. If you like mid-range restaurants, there are really nice ones in the different malls. And if you like really high-end stuff like Michelin star and all that stuff, you would also find it. So you would find every cuisine and every food to match whatever budget you're working with. The next pro I'm going to talk about is the standard of living. So in this sense, I'm talking about the standard of living for an expatriate. And this is because, this is because the cost of living is generally low in Indonesia. So you would be able to afford things that you would normally not be able to afford in your home country. For instance, it is quite normal for expats, families or expatriates to have a pool. You have a pool person, you're also able to hire security. If you have a garden, you have a gardener. So like, the cost of labor is generally cheap because the cost of living is cheap. So you would be able to afford these luxuries that you would only be able to dream of in your home country. And I mean, if you're not into this type of stuff, to also fine, you can use your money to do other things, but I think it's a good way to provide employment for local unskilled labor. And I mean, if you can do it, why not? The next pro I'm going to talk about is the travel opportunity here. I also spoke about this in my other video about, I already mentioned it previously, so it's enough promotion about this video. Yeah, talking about travel, of course, traveling to places like New Zealand, Australia, countries in Southeast Asia, which normally would be very expensive and very far. If you're coming from somewhere in, for instance, in North America, in Europe or Africa, the traveling opportunity here is really, really amazing and fantastic. You can get cheap, relatively cheap local flights and regional flights. And you're really into travel and exploration, this would be a fantastic location for you because of its proximity to all these different countries of interest. And also, local travel is also really, really amazing. Indonesia is a beautiful country in terms of travel, and it's not only Bali. There are so many places in Indonesia you can go to. The next thing I'm going to talk about, the next pro I'm going to talk about, is the nightlife. See me? The nightlife in Jakarta is on point. It's really amazing. If you're really into dressing up, going out for drinks with your friends, going to clubs, dancing, having a good time, Jakarta is the place. It's really, 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 really one of the top ones I've experienced. Like, There are many really good bars, cocktail bars, really nice restaurants. I already talked about restaurants before. Really good bars and restaurants and clubs if you want to go clubbing. So your nightlife and entertainment will not be boring at all for sure in Jakarta. I mean, that's pretty much the only thing to do in Jakarta for entertainment because it's not the most. I will talk about that part in my cons, in the cons I'm going to talk about. But nightlife is amazing. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the weather. Summer all year round, 365 days. And if it's a leap year, one extra summer day added to it. Like, now I cherish these things so much now that I no longer live in Indonesia. Now I live in Germany. I'm not sad about that, but the weather is fantastic. If you're coming from a country where it's always cold and dark, this will be a huge reprieve for you because you have summer all year round. The sun is always shining. Like the sun, you have sun every time. Can you imagine? The weather is fantastic. I think they have the rainy and the dry season. The rainy season is really not, this is kind of like a con. The rainy season is not really ideal in Jakarta because the drainage system is really not at its best. So there is usually a lot of flooding in many areas, especially in Kemang. Kemang is one of the areas that expats like to live in. There's a lot of flooding and the streets get flooded. So the rainy season is not really the best. But I love rain. Like the smell of rain, it makes the flower grow. The weather is fantastic. Apart from the humidity, humidity is good for plants and living things. So you just have to deal with that. There is sun. Be happy. The first con I'm going to talk about is specific to Jakarta because that's where I lived, the capital city of Indonesia. And I don't know if other parts of other big cities in Indonesia have this problem, but the traffic is terrible. I think it's going to be one of the most horrible traffics you've ever experienced in your life. After living in Jakarta, every traffic jam looks like a joke to me. And I'm just like, when people say, oh my God, there's traffic, I'm like, what? The traffic is really terrible, especially for instance if you a journey that would take like 10 minutes on a normal day without traffic or 15 minutes, when it's traffic, when it's peak period, that's when everybody goes to work or when everybody's leaving from work. During this peak period, it usually takes like something like 1 hour, 1.5 hours, or 2 hours actually. So usually if you want to do yourself a favor as an expat, live as close as possible to where your office is located. 2 kilometers max or 3 kilometers max from your office. If you can do that, that would be one of the best decisions you make. Or otherwise, you will spend a huge chunk of your time stuck in traffic. Another con I will talk about is the pollution. The pollution in Jakarta is not the air quality in Jakarta is not the best it could be. There's a lot of pollution, of course, because of some industrial emissions in the city, and also the traffic situation is really bad. So this also contributes to the pollution. If you're coming from a country in Europe where the air quality is really good, you're going to really struggle with this part. Another thing I'm going to talk about is, this is depending on your perspective, this will be a con, and depending on where you're coming from, this will be a con. So the healthcare system. Generally, the healthcare system is pretty okay, but if you have really serious health conditions, then you might have to travel to Singapore, which is not super far from Jakarta. From Indonesia, it's like, what's the flight? Like 1 hour or 2 hours, thereabouts. Yeah, you have to go to Singapore. But for really basic things, like for really basic healthcare, you can have it done in Jakarta. For instance, when I wanted to do my LASIK surgery, I have a video of that. I would also link somewhere. Somewhere, if you haven't seen it, you can see it. Or if you're interested in knowing what the LASIK surgery process looks like and everything, you can go to that video and watch it. But when I wanted to do my LASIK surgery, I decided to do it in Singapore instead of doing it in Indonesia because the healthcare system is good, but please, I only have 2 eyes. I don't have spare eyes, so I don't want to take any chances. So I just respected myself and I went to Singapore. That's all about that. That's all I have to say about the healthcare system. Another to add to that, the healthcare system thing, if you're coming from a Western country like somewhere in Northern America or Europe, you would not be too happy with the quality you're receiving, or the yeah, some of the things you're receiving. However, if you're coming from a country like Nigeria, or an underdeveloped or developing country, I think the healthcare system would be actually either better than what you're used to or the same level as what you're used to. The next con I'm going to talk about is the conservative culture. So, as many people who, if you're watching this video, maybe you're interested in going to Indonesia, or for whatever reason, I don't know. But Indonesia is one of the most populous Islamic countries in the world. So the culture is generally conservative in nature. However, if you live in urban areas, or if you live in Jakarta, for instance, is the conservativeness is not as noticeable as in other parts of Indonesia, I guess, the other is Muslim parts of Indonesia. So of course, like in certain places, when you go to the mall, of course, people wear shorts, people wear stuff like this, but there are some certain places that you will go to that I don't think it's a good idea to actually wear those skimpy shorts and like really explosive stuff if you're going in public. But generally, it's not so bad in the capital city like it is in other places, I think. But you just keep in mind to be respectful of the culture of the people. There are a lot of people covering a lot of women that cover their hair like it's expected in the Muslim culture. So you should just be aware of that. The last con I'm going to talk about is the expensiveness of imported products. So if you're one of those people that like to eat things like cheese, and what other imported products can I think about? Any product that is imported is generally more expensive. And alcohol is expensive in Indonesia. I don't know, maybe it's because of the sin tax thing or whatever, and I don't know if it's because most of the alcohol is imported, it's expensive. So all the imported stuff from, like, if you're into like eating beef from Australia, you cannot eat local beef, which I don't know why you will not be able to eat local beef. But if you have to eat imported Australian beef, you have to shell out some coin for it, so it's relatively expensive. But if you're okay with having local substitutes for anything you want to eat, you will not have a problem. But just be aware that imported food is generally more expensive than local food, which is to be expected, I guess. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you live in the country as an expat, share your pros and cons of where you live in the comment section below, and let's get talking. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe, and share with your friends that are either thinking of starting the expat life or thinking about moving to Indonesia. Thank you very much again. I said thank you very much again. And I'll see you in my next video.